It's a new room to the office. We built it for events like this, for training. Actually, my staff have already used it for a couple of staff things, but this is our first outside event, so we may have some bugs to work through, but please be patient. I think I have a great IT guy, Shane, in the back. I think we've worked out stuff, but everybody can hear me fine with the microphone in the back?
Yep.
Okay, I was gonna not use the microphone because I'm a pretty loud person, but maybe I won't have to scream. I have a lot of open in the front. People don't like to sit up front. Listen, I have to make my staff sit up front. I won't do anything until I make them fill it up, so you're not the only ones. How many have been to a presentation I've done before? How many have actually been to this office before? Even fewer, yeah. A lot of things are done online, so you don't have to physically come in. When I started years ago, you actually had to come into the office and look up everything manually. With computers and internet, the world is a lot easier now. So a little bit about me. I have worked in the office for almost 40 years. I've been a property appraiser since 2008. Re-elected every 4 years, just got re-elected this past November, so I'm very fortunate. I started when I was very young, started at the front counter answering phones and worked my way up, so I am super blessed that I get to do something I like to do, because I still like to come to work. I don't like to have to go run for a re-election every 4 years, because I would lose my job if I was not re-elected, but I love the job itself. I was born and raised here in Osceola County. Anybody else? Oh, yay, happy people. I usually only have me and Rachel, so I'm glad others are born and raised here. I have 4 sons. My youngest just graduated from high school in 23, so now I'm trying to figure out what to do with all my spare time. It's a hard adjustment after raising 4 children, but I also have 2 grandchildren. So that's a little bit about me. As I go through the presentation, please feel free to ask questions as I'm going through. I don't expect you to wait till the end, because it should generate more questions. But again, no questions back, and just raise your hand, okay? So our mission is to take care of our customers and to assess all properties fairly and equitably. I'm charged by Florida statutes to do that, and that is our greatest mission. Customers are huge, huge and important to me. So those are the 2 biggest things we have. A little bit about what I do. Most people do not understand what the property appraiser does. We are charged with assessing all property, real and personal. Real being the land and the buildings, personal will be these tables and chairs. If you have a business, your computers, that's tangible personal property. Everything I do comes from the Florida statutes. I'm an elected official. I do not answer to the Board of County Commissioners or the city councils. I am answering to the people who elect me and the governor. The only way I can be removed from office is if I did something illegal, which I do not plan on doing, or not be re-elected. We do not set tax rates or do special assessments. Special assessments would be the garbage, CBD fees, things like that. I am responsible for the value only. The taxing authority sets the tax rate, and the tax collector collects the taxes. I hold 3 certifications, certified Florida appraiser, certified cadastral. Anybody know what a cadastral is? No, nobody? It's a map maker. Prior to being the property appraiser, I worked in our land records department, and I actually drew the map. So I worked for certifications, and I just continued holding those certifications. Yes, Kevin?
Will we get a copy of this?
Yes, you can.
Send an email.
Got it.
My cards are on everybody's seats.
Okay.
Sign in and we'll send you one.
So everything that we do is cyclical, and everything is as of January 1. So when you get your tax bill in November, it's going to be what was on your property and what was going on January 1st. So when you got your bill this last November, it was based on the values in 2024. No, excuse me, 2023. We're now in 25. So again, remember, everything is as of January 1st. If you build a house and it's not completed until April of this year, your bill in November is going to be for vacant land, and then in 2026, it will include your home. Because again, go back to what was going on January 1st. The deadline to file for exemptions is March 1st. You can file late applications up until about mid-September, but I do ask that you tell your clients to come in as soon as they can to file for exemption, because If you're like me, you wait too long, you're gonna totally forget. June first, we are obligated to send best estimates to all the taxing authorities. So the cities, the county, the school board, we send an aggregate value that we've placed on all properties to the taxing authorities for them to start working on their tax roll, or excuse me, their tax rate. So we're gonna give them the value, then they're gonna start working on their budgets to come up with what rate is that they need in order to collect taxes, or run their governments. July first, I'm required to send a tax roll to the Department of Revenue in Tallahassee. They run statistical analysis on the roll to make sure I am doing my job, which is to assess everyone fairly and equitably. Yes. Did you have a question?
Yes, sorry, but
You're fine.
if, I have a question based on that.
Sure.
If you buy a house in June, right? And then you got the trim in August, and you apply in, January for the, homestead exemption. How does it work? The person will get the tax the same before, when?
So it's as of January 1, it's for the full year. So the bill in November is gonna be for the entire year.
Yes, so the person that bought this house in June, she will get the tax that was when she got the house, or she will have, a new assessment will be more expensive, and then the exemption will come just in the next year.
Yes, the exemption is not applied until the following year, because she did not own it and lived in it on January 1st. But I'll get into that a little bit more later on, okay? So July 1st is the tax roll. Again, they run statistical analysis to make sure that we're doing our job. If we're not doing our job, the Department of Revenue can fail the tax roll, and the tax authorities cannot collect taxes. Now, I'm not aware of that ever happening, but they do have that authority. So what we do is very important. People think we're just here doing homestead, but placing the value on the properties and making sure that we're treating everyone fairly and equitably is very, very important. And then August, usually, it's not exactly August 16th, in this example it is. In mid-August, we send the trim notices, and also known as notice of proposed property taxes. Super, super important document. When you get that, or your client gets that, they need to take a look at that document. It tells you the value that we placed on the property, what their proposed taxes are gonna be, and any exemptions. Kevin?
What does TRIM stand for?
Truth and millage.
Okay.
Truth and millage, because it's giving you what the proposed millages are, okay? A lot of people will see that and it says, do not pay, this is not a bill, and they'll throw it in the garbage. Tell them not to do that. Tell them it's super important, because if they have questions about their value, that's the time to contact the office. We should be able to explain to them what we use, what sales we looked at, and how we arrived at their value. Once the bills go out in November, I have this much of a window to make adjustments, and it closes come November. Once I certify that tax roll to the tax collector in October, I can only change something that's factual. Bedroom, bathroom, that's not really gonna change the value of what we do. The only thing that we could change is maybe square footage of a house, if we've assessed too much land. So just tell them it's a very important document. Now, if they contact the office and they still do not agree with the value after talking to the appraisers, they can file what's called a petition and go in front of a value adjustment board, which is VAB. You have the deadline, it's only 25 days from the time that the trims are mailed. And then the VAB is a informal hearing. You'll go in front of a special magistrate. My staff will explain how we arrived at the value and why we think we are correct, and you as a property owner can state your case and give evidence as to why you think what you think is correct. I will tell you 99.9% of the time, it is a large commercial property, apartment buildings, hotels, strip centers, shopping centers. Those are the ones that are actually going to the value adjustment board, because they're trying to get millions of dollars off their value. The average property owner, even with large properties, if we've made a mistake, we will fix it. You know, we're not gonna go, oh, we're not fixing it, we're right. You are the property owner, your clients are the property owner, they know their property better than anybody. So if there's something incorrect, we will fix it. But if we have not done anything incorrectly, we will go to the value adjustment board and plead our case. Yes, ma'am?
Quick question.
Yes.
Maybe silly.
No.
Maybe the majority of the people they know, I don't know.
No problem.
Why the property tax is different, like in the same community, like neighbor to the neighbor, it's a huge difference in price, like, why? I always was wondering why.
Because of all the, because of Homestead and because of the caps that are in place.
Let's say 3 of them have, homestead,
Mhm.
and even though they are different.
Right, because they've owned it for different amounts of time. So with Homestead, you start this year with Homestead, okay? Your neighbors live there for 10 years. Well, their value has been capped at 3% every single year. Well, you just applied this year, yours is going at what the property is assessed for today. Because they have Homestead, a big benefit of Homestead is that your value cannot go up more than 3%, not your taxes, but your value. So if you've lived in your house for many, many years, your value's been capped, and especially the last 4 years, 4 to 5 years, where the values have just risen astronomically. Someone who's been in their house for 10 years, their bill's gonna be down here. Someone in the last 5 years, their bill's gonna be the same exact house.
Very stressful, right? Like if the person came from another property, transferred
They can transfer some value, which I'll get into in a little bit, but it's not going to take it back down. I'll explain a little bit further. You're welcome. October 1st, we finalized tax roll, sent it to the tax collector, and November 1st, he starts collecting the taxes, and the cycle happens all over again. We look at 3 approaches to value. We do physical inspections. Every single permit that's pulled, we go and physically measure that property. Every single one. We also are statutorily required to look at properties once every 5 years. Used to, we have boots on the ground, but our county is way too large to do that, and I would not have the budget to maintain that. So several years ago, the legislature changed it so that we can use aerial photography. So we can look at so what we do now is we look at 2 different years, and if we see a difference, then we will send someone. And then we need to meet our statutory requirement, but there's just no way, to be able to keep up with someone actually physically going there once every 5 years. What we do is called mass appraisal. We use a CAMA system, which stands for Computer Aided Mass Appraisal. And so we input data into a computer system, and that's how we assess all of the properties that we have. You've got a client and there's an appraisal being done, there's one appraisal on one piece of property. We're doing over 200,000, so that's why it's called mass, because we're massively appraising everything. So just a few fun facts about, we were the 40th county in 1887. Our population is estimated to be 453,000, which is a growth, since 2020, it's grown 16%, and since 2010, we've grown over 68%. And if you drive around our county, you can see it's definitely growing. And if you've been here since prior to 2010, you definitely see the change. Our county is 1,500 square miles, and we have the oldest courthouse in Florida still in use. Has anyone been to the historical courthouse over by the clerk's office? If you've not been, it's beautiful. It's old, very old. You'll hear every creak when you walk in there, but it is beautiful. So a little bit about the office. Our total market value last year was $80.1 billion, which equates to about $814 million in taxes. That's an 8% increase year over year. However, since 2021, our market value has increased by 58.6%.
Wow.
Yes, I agree with you, wow.
I'm in the wrong business.
Our homestead parcels were just under 83,000, and since 2021, that's almost a 32% increase. So the people who are buying here are living here. Countywide parcels, we have just over 205,000 parcels, and since 2021, that's grown by about 12%. We all see it, but when you look at the numbers and the statistics, you know, there is the wow factor, especially the market value. That is attributed to what the properties are selling for, because I have to reflect what the market shows. So here's a graph, and back here you can see this red line in 2008, when the boom was happening, and everybody's like, wow, values are really up, prices are really high. Well, we surpassed that greatly. And so this graph really gives you a good picture of how we surpassed it. And in 2022, we rose, and if you can see, the top line is the market value, the bottom is the taxable value. So you can see from 2021 to current, how much the market value has grown. If you're realtors, you know, you're out there selling property, you know what properties are going up. Again, I'm reflecting what's out there. The second line is the homestead, it's gonna go up, but it's not gonna go up as significantly. Single family homes. Back in 2006, I think 2005, we put on more than 5,500 single family homes, and we thought that was a lot then. And then this past year, we put on 6,300. The most we put on were 6,500. So my appraisers are super busy, because remember I told you, we go to every single permit. This is just single family homes, just single family homes. So my staff stays pretty busy out in the field. You can see when the bottom dropped out, we only put on 476 homes, and then we gradually gone up. I've not done a huge study on why we dipped from, what is it, 2018 or 19 to 2021. I think that has to do with shortages of supplies shortage, and we didn't have enough houses. And so I've been told that some of the large developers were holding back inventory, so that's why it kind of dipped. I think that it's dipped now because of interest rates. Again, I'm not an economist and I'm not studied it, that's just my opinion.
That was the supply.
Yes, I agree. So in new construction, we added in 2024, we added $2.8 billion, which equates to 7.6 million every single day of new construction. Again, you drive around the county, you see it, it's out there, apartment buildings especially, new homes, everything. The last couple years prior to that, we were putting on over more than $2 billion in new construction. So in the last 3 years, we put on over $7 billion in new construction. And again, this is as of October 1st, because we just finished our tax roll, and because we're at the beginning of the year, we're starting for the next roll. Everybody thinks the growth is just in one place. This is the northern part of the county, it's everywhere. The western side of Champions Gate, Margaritaville, all the way over to Harmony. The numbers in parentheses, you may not be able to read, are the number of homes in that area. And you can see, Narcoossee has the most. There's a lot of vacant land out there, a lot of property that they can develop. I think that, plus we're south of Lake Nona, and I think that's crawled down into Osceola County, so those two things have made Narcoossee super popular. And anybody who has to drive Narcoossee knows that, because you're sitting in traffic. Not that you're sitting in traffic everywhere, seems to be everywhere, but Narcoossee's really bad. I was on there this morning, I'm like, I'm glad I don't have to drive this every single day. But again, the point to this is, it's everywhere. It's not in just one part of the county. And if you're just in your part, you're like, how's just going on here? But it truly is all over. So exemptions, most popular subjects. And I know I'll have lots of questions based on the ones so far. Again, the filing deadline is March 1st. Years and years ago, that was drop dead. You came in on March 2nd, legally, I was not allowed to take your application. So you missed it a whole year. Now we are allowed to take them to about mid-September, and as long as you can show that you lived in the home and give us a reason as to why you are late filing. I will say we try really hard to get information out there. We advertise on social media, in the newspaper, on bus stops. We put it in newsletters. I have a newsletter, so we try to get the information out there. Yes, Kevin?
What was the driving factor to extend to September?
Because so many people were missing the deadline, and we as property appraisers could continue to take them. So I think it was a combination of the property owners going to the legislature, along with property appraisers going, yeah, it wouldn't hurt for them to file late. I mean, think about it, everything you have kind of a window, a late window that you can file. So the legislature's like, okay, we'll give you that flexibility.
Okay.
Yes,
Can you explain why September's a hard deadline?
sure. Pardon, ma'am? Did you have a question, ma'am?
Fiscal year.
No, I'm just saying because it's a huge flexibility.
Yes, it is
March
huge.
to September.
Yes, so September is the deadline, because that's the last day to file a VAB petition, if you disagree with their value, so that's why September is the day. But please tell your customers or your clients to file as soon as possible. possible. Yes,
Can we tell, what should we tell our buyers, cause I had buyers that said they filed for homestead exemption, but they did not receive, let's say, a confirmation email, so it didn't go through, so when they did get their taxes the next year, they were upset, they were higher, but is there something that they would receive to confirm that they did file?
they do receive a confirmation email when you file.
So
That's
they
sent,
must have
that's
done it
sent
right.
immediately, so I don't know your clients, but I'm gonna guess that they probably did not.
I think they must not have hit submit or something.
I'm not aware of any issues where someone can prove to us that they filed and we didn't process it. Not saying that has not happened, but when you file, you do get a confirmation email. Now, it does take us months. We process over 10,000 applications a year, and actually it grows every year. And so it does take us time. We are really striving. I don't know that we'll be able to do it this year, but one of my goals is to try to get it where it's within a few days. But right now, it takes us months to process those documents, but they do get a confirmation email. Yes.
Now, to piggyback on that, is there a location or a place they can go and confirm, search if they're approved or not?
Not right now, no. We get emails all the time, people come on our chats all the time, they can call the office. When it's processed, it will show up on the website. So my website is updated every single day, so anything that we process today will show up tomorrow. So they can check back at the website, but just ask them to give us several months, especially right now, because we're just finished one tax roll and we're going into another. And so it just, unfortunately, it takes time, and in a world of instant, I wanted to know now, and I totally get it, but again, it just isn't feasible for us. I don't have enough staff, and I can't afford for just a few months out of the year, but it will get processed, yes, sir.
And the flexibility with the deadline, is this just an Osceola thing?
No,
Or
it's
the
state of
state?
Florida, state of Florida. Everything that I'm gonna tell you today is statewide.
Is that going to affect recently, or it's been happening for a couple years?
The extension?
Yes.
It's been years, many years, probably at least 10. Did I forget something?
I just wanted to reiterate, the trim notice that will be going out in August will also show the exemptions. So that's a good tool for your clients to be able to actually read that and, see if they have the exemption or not, because if it's not on there, that's their time to come call us, come into the office to talk to us, live chat, all of the ways to communicate exist.
Yes,
So
but I encourage them, if they wanna check, they are welcome to email, call, or however, just ask them to give us time. Unfortunately, again, I'm working towards it, I can't promise when that's gonna happen, because nothing, technology-wise happens like that. Seems like it in the world, but I can assure you, with all the technology we try to put in place, it's not that easy. So, why file? Well, first off, it lowers property taxes, roughly $750 a year. But the greater benefit is that cap. And I'll go back to the question of why is my neighbor's taxes so much lower than mine? So, once you file for homestead, your value cannot increase more than 3% a year. Okay, as long as you have homestead and you live in the home. If you sell your property, the new owner is going to inherit the homestead for the remainder of the year, and then the following year, again, when January 1 hits, that homestead's gonna go away, and so is that cap. And right now, in the last several years, because of the increase in value or the increase in what properties are selling for, property taxes are doubling, tripling, sometimes quadrupling, in many cases, depending on how long the previous owner was in the property. So many factors. Years ago, people could compare their taxes. You cannot do that anymore, because you don't know how long the person next door lived in their property. You don't know how long the person down the road lived at their property. There's just so many, hold on, Kevin.
So when you say the new buyer inherits the rest of the year, but that buyer has to have that as his primary residence, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, the homestead is there all year long, So if you buy property in June, and you're gonna get the bill in November, and it's gonna have homestead on it, but that's homestead from the previous person, it's not
Right.
yours, you're not grandfathered in, you don't automatically get it, you do have to apply. I legally cannot remove it until the following year.
Now, can we use a formula of just a rule of thumb to give them an estimate? Say, for example, the seller bought it for X amount of dollars, now the market has changed, it's doubled in price, therefore your taxes are gonna be automatically doubled, or no?
So I have a tax estimator on my website that I'll show you later in the presentation, and I would encourage that they take the sale price, what they're buying the property for, and use that to try to compute their taxes. It is most likely going to be higher.
100% will be higher, but my question is, would it, like, if the property value doubled, does that mean the tax doubles or not necessarily?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
No, there's no good rule of thumb, like, hey, this is gonna automatically happen. Use that tax estimator, it's going to give you a much better idea of what the taxes are. But just know, the taxes are not gonna ever stay the same,
That's right.
ever, ever.
It only goes one way.
It only goes
Yeah.
You know, those caps are good and bad. They're good because as property owner, you own the house, your taxes are staying down. But when you go to purchase a property, that cap value that's been in place, it goes away. The law says it's gone. Come January 1st, it's gone, and so the value's gonna go up. And the reason it's been so significant the last several years is because of the significant increase in what properties are selling for. They're leveling off a little bit now, so it won't be as drastic years down the road, but right now it's gonna be different. Also, if it's non-homesteaded property, meaning you have an investment property, so you didn't qualify for homestead, there is a 10% cap. That cap will also go away, so that's why I'm telling you, tell your buyers, their taxes will never be what they are right now. Never, ever, ever. They'll never stay the same. Yes, ma'am.
Is that right? We calculate like 1.6% of the price of the property, or, I know some regions, they have less, like 1.4 plus.
I don't know where you're pulling that from, so my advice is to use my tax estimator, because I'm using whatever number you put, the sale price, and I'm using millage rates that are, like, true millage rates are being used right now. It's gonna fluctuate a little bit, but also remember, my values are usually lower than what property you're selling for. So, I mean, I'm not sure where that 1.6 comes from, so I can't say yes. The only thing I feel confident in telling you to use is my tax estimator.
Yeah, is that way we kind of, I calculate like 1.6% of the price of the property, or 1.4.
How does it work out when the bills
They
come out?
say in Orlando is 1.6 and, Osceola is 1.4, I don't know what they.
I don't know either. That's why I suggest the tax estimator.
The title company for your clients, when we do the auto stuff,
Okay.
we use her tax, we use the tax calculator, so just go by that, cause that will give you a better estimate.
That's good, and, regarding to the builders, they have to know how much it is.
The builders?
No idea, like, the land, they just said, that's the land, we don't know how much it will be, so it's hard because clients can.
Use what they're paying for the house. They know what they're buying the house for. That's gonna include the land. So if you've got a client who's building a house in a subdivision, say D.R. Horton's building it, okay? And they're paying $400,000, use that on the tax estimator. That will give you a more realistic idea what the taxes are. Because the bill is gonna be the vacant land. That's the other thing. It's not just homestead. You got someone who's building a brand new home in a subdivision, the bill currently is going to be vacant land. The house is gonna go on next year, and so the bill again is going to quadruple most of the time. So that's why I really encourage the tax estimator. We just recently updated it to make it maybe a little bit more, realistic, but it's gonna always be most likely high. Because
The tax, this calculator in the website, the.
yes, I'll show you in a little bit.
Yeah.
Conversation. That's fine. Any other questions before I move on? Okay.
You're good.
So the cap started in 1995, so if you've got a client who's selling their property and they've owned a house since 1995, imagine their assessments here, the cap part, with the values going, the sales going up, it's here. There's a huge savings in here. So if they sell their property, they've lived there since 95, the person who's inheriting that, their taxes are gonna be astronomical. So just always know, it's always gonna change. Yes, ma'am?
So if you put your house under a trust, I know you lose your exemption. Do you lose it like all the way, like it starts over from the year, or is there some type of?
Any change of ownership causes you to lose your cap. So when people are doing things like that, they really need to, when you're talking, because a lot of people put their properties in trust. I think I have a, slide in here, I have a slide on the trust. But when you put your property in a trust, it's for income tax purposes, inheritance purposes, but it can affect your homestead. I do have a slide that I'll go over a little bit more. But yes, any change of ownership. I know that it may not be a change of ownership, but it is a change of ownership, cause you're taking it as yourself
Yes.
and you're putting it into a trust. That is a true change of ownership. I know you might be the person who the trust is,
Right.
but it's just like the LLC. I may have an LLC, but there's a purpose why I've got an LLC, even though it's me. I'm still changing ownership from myself as an individual to my LLC. It is still a change of ownership.
And is there a certain way to write a trust that it doesn't change your homestead or no? Once you do a trust, you're done.
When I can show you in the slide how, it depends on how you write the trust, but there's no way to change, cause you're changing the ownership.
Oh, okay, so no matter what, it changes your homestead?
It could change your value, yes, yes. Again, because you're taking it as an individual into a trust.
So right away.
Not always.
But it still sounds like, to a degree, it's still gonna go up slightly.
Yes, because you're changing ownership,
Or
Oh,
not.
right.
yes. So, there's a lot of things to think about, because again, I know people are doing trusts for inheritance purposes, and you gotta weigh what inheritance is probably a little more important than property taxes right now. It just depends on your specific, reason for doing it, where you're at in life, do it sooner than later, I don't know, but it's changing ownership.
Yeah.
Any change of ownership. The only thing that will not remove it is if, say, a husband and wife, the husband bought the property and then later he deeds it to himself and his wife. That's my change of ownership because they're a family unit. But if you're taking it into a trust, you're changing the ownership.
But then if
And
you
I'll
put
go
it,
into the trust a little bit
if you
more.
put it in a trust, you can put whatever dollar value you want, and therefore the taxes should go down if it was lower value, no?
No, because it's not based on the value, the change of ownership is gonna remove the homestead and the cap.
Right, but if you put it on a trust, you're literally kind of selling it to the trust, and you can sell it for whatever you want.
Change of
Yeah,
ownership.
that, for what we do, is not relevant. It's not going to come into play because, we're gonna look, if we're looking at values, we're gonna look at similar properties. We're not looking at just what you're selling your property for, what you're transferring it for, we're gonna look at similar,
But
just
I
like
thought-
the appraiser does.
But I thought the taxes are based on the new purchase and sold price, no?
No, it's based on what properties are selling for, just like a fee appraiser. So if a fee appraiser, you hire a fee appraiser to appraise your home, they're gonna look for like properties to come up with value. Same thing I do, I just do it at a larger scale. So I don't go, okay, you paid $400,000 for your property, so I'm gonna assess you 400, but your next door neighbor bought the same exact property and they paid 450, so they're gonna pay 450. That's not, I am charged with fair and equitable.
So it's not whatever's higher.
Correct. It's
Gotcha.
fair and equitable across.
Perfect.
We're gonna throw out the highest ones, the lowest ones, and we're gonna look at
Average.
the average, which is why my values are generally lower than what properties are, what you pay for your property, because I'm taking the average of all. Not just, I think California is what you pay for it, and that's not how we do it here. Yes, ma'am.
What about if you add a kid to the title? Like if you have your children, or you add someone to your title, does that change your home?
Changing your title. Any way that you change title,
Okay.
where the laws. Who qualifies, you have to be a Florida resident, you have to own your home and live in your home on January 1. Again, always remember, January 1. Who owned it, who lived there, January 1. You do have to be a US citizen, you can do a green card, we now can do a political asylum, but anything outside of that will not qualify. You can come in person or online. We have about 70%, it stays pretty steady, around 70% file online. Prior to COVID, it was around 30%. Obviously, COVID shot everybody to the internet and doing things online, so we kind of revamped to try to streamline ours, and we still have about 70%. You can always come in person, if they'd rather come in person and look at a person do it, I understand. You can see my lobby was not very busy when you come in. Right now, that's about how it is. We might get an influx of several people, and then it'll die down. You don't have to make an appointment, and we will get you in and out as soon as possible. Yes, sir. No problem.
Last year you spoke about homestead for foreigners if they have a child under the age of 18. Does that still apply?
Yes. Do I have that in here?
No.
I don't think I have. I'm not deep diving as much into this one. But yes, if you have a child, if you're a US citizen,
Oh, you have to be a
you have to be a US citizen, yes.
Or permanent resident.
Or a permanent resident, correct. You need your driver's license, social security number, date of birth, those are just a handful of things that we ask for, it's required in order to apply. People wanna know why, social security number. So the state, when all of the property appraisers throughout the state send the information up to Tallahassee, they run, queries on all the data to make sure that a social security is not showing up. Social security number is not showing up in another county, because if it is, you get homestead in more than one county. And the state of Florida is very, very clear, you can have homestead in one place in the United States. You can own 100 properties, but you cannot be getting any kind of, tax rebate, tax exemption, nothing, anywhere else. So we have to ask for a social security number, because we can check in the state of Florida, and believe it or not, we do a list every year. Yes?
Sorry, I don't mean that.
Don't be sorry, don't be sorry.
So last year, if they were a foreigner, but they had a child that was born in the United States, that was under 18, they get homestead, was that? I thought I understood that. Or no? Did I
You're
understand that?
challenging me this morning, or this afternoon. I can't definitely tell you that, but I'm pretty sure if their minor child was born here, that they are, because they're considered a US resident, or US citizen.
You said something like that last.
Yeah, I think we dove a little bit deeper into it.
Click to the next slide, I added it, let's see if it is, there you go.
There, oh, it is on
Live,
there.
live
Oh.
changes.
Rachel did that.
Go, Rachel.
You're on the ball.
So you have minor children that are US citizens, you'll need to provide additional information, but yes, you can qualify. If you're here under political asylum, which I mentioned, you can qualify. This is what it looks like to file online, again, super simple. We still around 70%, it only takes about less than 10 minutes to file online. If people are comfortable with that, have them do it. If they're not, again, they can come in person. In the world we're in today, most people want to do everything online.
Ma'am, could you go back to the one is 94?
This question is asked a lot at times. I just wanna make sure I'm giving the right information.
Me too.
Thank you.
I know a little about a lot. So I have staff, they know a lot about the details. Did everybody get their picture?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Again, file online, this is what it looks like, super simple. We like to think. So, file for homestead. Before you go to file, please make sure that we have processed your deed online. It does take us a few weeks to get it processed. We have to get the data from the clerk's office, and then over here, we change our records. It will not happen in 24 hours. I can appreciate that your property or your clients wanna do it quickly, but give us a couple of weeks. Go on my website and make sure it's in your name first. You will not be able to file unless it's in your name. Then you can apply for homestead portability, which we'll have to go into, see if you qualify for any other exemptions. You will get an email confirmation if you provide us an email, and I'm pretty sure you have to provide an email in order to file. And then, you can confirm, as Rachel mentioned, on the trim notice, when they get it in August. Years ago, when I first started in the office, there was no chat, you couldn't call to find out, you just found out when you got your trim notice. So through the years, we've evolved, and again, we go back to, people wanna know now, did I get my exemption? You will be notified if you do not. We are required by law to deny everyone by July 1st, and we will give you the reason why. If it's something that we try to contact, the staff does try to reach out to the property owners that are filed, to try to get the information, but if we cannot, we will deny you. If you can supply us the information and make good on what it is that we needed, we'll process it. But you will know for sure when the trims come out in August, if you not talk to someone prior to that. So portability. So portability, I think someone had brought it up before, where you can bring your savings with you. So if you own a home only in the state of Florida, another county, in Osceola County, if you move from one homestead to another, you can bring over your savings. So, in this example, I'm gonna go to this side so I can see you. So right now, if your value is $400,000 and your assessed value is $250, the difference between those is $150. That's what we call your report amount. The difference between your assessment and your market is $150,000. You buy another house that's the same or larger, you're gonna bring that whole $150,000 in value to help decrease. So in this example, your value, you upsized and the value was $600,000. You less out that $150 that you had over on your previous home. Now your assessed is down to $450, minus your homestead, your taxable value is $400, whereas if you had not had the portability, it would be taxable at $550. Okay, now, the state of Florida will not let you go buy a $200,000 house if you have $150,000 and only pay taxes on $50,000. They won't let you do that. So it's a proportional amount. So if you downsize, the market value is $200, the proportional amount is just 37.5%, which is $75,000. You subtract that from the market value of $200, your assessment is $125, minus homestead, your tax on $75 versus $150. It's a huge savings, huge savings. So if you have a client that has moved from another county or in Osceola to another home, when they're filing online based on how they answer the questions, you will automatically file for portability. If you come into the office, based on how you answer the questions, we'll ask you if you want to file for portability. Now, sometimes people don't read the questions very well, and won't answer them correctly, so then it doesn't send them over to file for portability. My staff does try to catch those. We don't catch them all. We're human, unfortunately. We can't catch every single one, but we do try. But just tell your clients, if they own a home, make sure they answer those questions correctly so that it brings up the portability part. Yes?
But the names on title have to be identical, correct?
No. If a husband, say a husband owns a property in a county, like say you have a man and a woman who own two homes here in Osceola. They get married and they go buy a house together. One of them can port.
Oh, really?
Only one.
Now, what if there was a couple and then they're going through a divorce and they sold one and bought two separate ones?
Then they have to put that in their divorce papers.
Gotcha.
Because one person, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you who gets what.
Whoever files first gets it.
Basically, that's true, whoever files first, unless someone puts it there.
So I guess they have to reapply for the name.
Correct, yes. Yes, any county in the state of Florida. Only in Florida, you can move from any county to Osceola, from Osceola to any county within Osceola, but only the state of Florida. Yes, ma'am?
How can they tell if that portability, if they have this situation going, how that portability is applied when they do a new homestead for the new property?
We won't know, because if it's coming from another county, we have to reach out to the other county and they have to send us the value that it's gonna be. So when they apply, there's no way for us to be able to tell them.
Okay, so therefore, when you're doing your homestead, I just wanna make sure I understood when you said that it was automatically done if they answer the questions correctly?
Yes, they're asked, like, did you have homestead in the last 3 years? Believe it or not, a lot of people will go, no.
But if they answer yes, it's automatically done?
Yes.
Okay.
It depends on how they answer the questions. I'm not gonna have somebody automatically file for portability if they didn't own a home in Osceola County or in the state. Okay, so it's very important for people to read those questions. I mean, it seems to, not be as big a problem. I mean, we really try to go in and make it simple so people understand, but we still get people that
So
way.
if they didn't, is that something that they can go back and fix, or?
Yes, yes, they can go back and fix it if they think that they did not get it.
Is there a deadline for that?
Yes, they have 3 years. The next slide, we're going to 3 years. Yes.
Is there a way to track if that was ever done, like for somebody that's?
Yes, so they can email the office, call the office, get on the chat and say, hey, did I get my portability? My staff can look it up. Okay. So you only have 3 years to do portability. The only time that would be a problem is if, say, someone decides to sell their house and go live with their parents while they build another house. And they wanna save money so they don't start building right away. Well, they're not gonna get the portability if they do it outside that 3 years. And so in here, you may not get a full 3 years depending on where you bought the property. So say if you bought the property July 1st, you're not gonna get a full 3 years, cause you see, if you follow this, year 2 starts in the orange and then goes around. So you're not gonna necessarily get 3 full years. So you need to let your clients know, if they're building a house, let's say they wanna, again, move in with a family member to save money, they need to think about doing that within 3 years, and property taxes are a big deal to them. It used to be 2, and the legislature changed it, it's been the last 3 years, I think, so that it's 3, but it's calendar years.
So how do I know if I got the portability, on a new property? Does it say portability on?
It'll be on your trim notice, but if you do not, if you don't see anything and it doesn't make sense, contact the office. I would rather you talk to someone to know for sure, if you don't mind answering questions. So I'd rather someone, contact the office than go on your trim notice.
So if you say portability.
It'll say, I think it'll say, might say Save on Homes, no, it doesn't say Save on Homes benefit, it may say additional exemption.
I don't know if I understood correctly. So the portability needs to be done inside the 3 years?
Yes, yes, inside the 3 years. Most people are gonna do it when they apply for homestead, and most people are gonna buy a house, they're gonna sell a house and buy one all at the same time. But you have some people who, we just had a case recently that they didn't get their portability because they sold the property, moved in with parents to save some money, by the time their house was completed, plus they didn't go real well, and they fell outside the 3 years and they didn't get the portability. The vast majority are going to not have that problem, yes.
About when, the owner has a property, leave that property and rent it and buy another property for them, so they can transfer that rent.
On the website, it'll show you, what the market value is, I think we go back 4 years, what your portability, potential portability, say where homes amount is, what your assessment is, your existence, so if you've got a property, you're owed, if you wanna go there and look, it's on the website, it's recent, is everybody using the newer, like we just updated the website in the last 6 months, is everybody going to the newest site, or are you still using the old site and it's moving really slow? If you're not using the new site, you need to go to the new site, because that's the one that gets updated.
Okay.
So some other exemptions, homestead portability, there's additional homestead for seniors. If one of your clients is, 65 or older, there's a limited income. They cannot make more than $36,614 for 2024. Super limited income is 65, the income, and they've owned and lived on their property for 25 years or more. There's widow, yes. Got it.
I have a client that she's gonna make it. She wants to know, can a disabled person, I know you haven't talked about it, apply? They're legally blind and she has the,
Yes. So widows, widowers, blind, totally permanently disabled, those are all exemptions that people can apply for, yes.
she said the link doesn't work, is there a link?
The link doesn't work.
No, she said that the disability exemption.
Okay. Rachel will make a note, and we'll get that fixed. If you'd like, she could, email in to info@property-appraiser.org and we can send her one. You're welcome. There's several veterans. Kevin and I do, presentation once a year, and I kind of deep dive into veterans, and there's several, service-connected, disabled veterans, totally and permanently disabled, deployed, combat related. If you have a client who's a veteran, they may qualify for an additional exemption. And then there's additional homestead for surviving spouses of first responders. So there's also a couple of new things, that deal with veterans. There's a prorated refund. So I'm not as fluid in this one, so I might have to read a little bit, because they're so new. So if you purchase a new home in Florida as a total and permanently disabled veteran, you can qualify for a prorated refund. You have to pay the taxes first, then you get refund prorated portion of when you took title. So that's only totally and permanently disabled veteran. So again, if you have a veteran, there's other exemptions that they could qualify for. This one's new, that's why I said I have to read it, because, we're still processing them. Another one is, if you're working on getting your disability and you don't have it yet, I encourage the veteran to apply for the, exemption, and then when they get the document from the Department of Veterans Affairs, then we can backdate it to the day. That'll come into play if someone's around the first of the year. Now, you know, if you're working on it in July, that's not really gonna make a difference, but I encourage them to apply, because I cannot backdate it to the date of your letter if I don't have an application first. So if you know if you've got a veteran and they are working on that, encourage them to apply. And then there's a pre-qualified letter. Are you familiar with the new pre-qualified letter for veterans? So if a veteran is purchasing a piece of property, they can ask for us to see if they may pre-qualify for the total permanently disabled, exemption, because title companies are prorating the taxes, and total permanent disabled vets pay 0 taxes. So it could make a difference between qualifying and unqualifying. So now, I think this was new last year, just went in effect January 1st. So, they can get a letter. We will make sure that whatever document we need, it's not gonna be, oh, maybe, and you don't get it from that time on. You still have to apply once you buy the property. Amendment 5 just passed. Is everybody familiar with Amendment 5? Yes, sir.
On the veterans,
Yes.
is there anything other than total and permanent, like if they're a certain percentage?
10% higher is $5,000, I believe, in value. So yes. I think there is something being proposed for this legislation to increase that from 5,000 to 10,000. Don't quote me on that. There's a lot of stuff floating around. I know legislature's fixing to go into session, so there's all kinds of talk always. And then by the time we get to the end of session, things have changed from the very first day. So, don't quote me on that. It'll be out there if it passes. But right now, 10% or higher, you can get, 5,000.
And dollars wise, 5,000, what is that?
$100. $100. Better than nothing, I agree. Every coin counts, for sure. So Amendment 5 just passed in November, and it is an increase on the second homestead. So right now you get you got $25,000, the first $25,000 is exempt. You're taxed on the second $25,000, and then the third $25,000 is exempt. So the third $25,000, which is the second homestead, now has an increase every year, based on the CPI, I believe. So for 2025, it's 2.9%. So instead of just a flat 25,000, it's 25,722. It's not much. And when people were asking me, should I vote on this or should I not? I mean, there were arguments both ways, but at the end of the day, it is not going to be a huge, significant savings. Now, maybe many years, but it's only gonna increase by the CPI every year. So that's what it is this year. Trust and homestead. If your property's in trust, you can retain it as long as the trust gives you the right to occupy and reside. A lot of people, most people, are gonna occupy and reside, but for whatever reason, some people may change it. So, if you got a client who's thinking about putting their property in a trust, I would tell them to talk to them about homestead as well, what needs to be there, contact our office, the attorney can contact the office, but there has to be verbiage that they occupy it and reside. If you're creating a trust and everything is for your kids, you're not gonna get it. You're not gonna get the homestead. So again, I know people are doing it for income tax, inheritance, but it does affect your homestead if it's not written correctly. But we'll be glad to tell you what we need to be written in the trust in order to get homestead. Once you get homestead, it's automatically renewed every year unless you move. When I started in the office almost 40 years ago, everybody had to sign a card and send back. And I'm telling you, it was all hands on deck when these cards came in, years ago. I mean, it's probably been 20 years. We can automatically renew them. So once you apply and you're granted the exemption, it will stay on that property. You'll get this postcard every year that says, hey, your exemption's there. It will tell you what exemptions you have, and then you can file it, you can throw it away, whatever you would like, but it's just letting you know you do have your exemption. Again, you have to reapply if you move. You have to. The 10% cap I talked about vaguely before. Non-homesteaded property is capped, has a 10% cap. However, it does not apply to school millage. Well, school millage is almost half of the millage rate. So if you have an investment property, your taxes are going up right now, with the values going up, because almost half of that is school millage, and that 10% cap is not on there. So all properties have a cap. That's why I keep telling you to tell your clients the taxes are not gonna be what they are when you close on the property. They are going to go up. Yes?
Do you have a question?
Yeah.
When you rent a property, they're asking her to apply for homestead. How does that work?
If you rent your property, you cannot get homestead.
What does she want? What's no? Oh, what does that mean? Like, what are they asking?
This is for, if you have rental property, you have to have a, business license.
If you're renting. Oh,
If you own rental property, you have to have a business license.
I didn't know that.
Yes, you're supposed to have a business license, because it's a business.
It's a business, it's income that you're getting, so you have to register it.
Oh.
Yes, you do. But that does bring up a point, you cannot rent your property if it's homestead. Even, so say you're a winter resident and you live here 6 months and you live up north 6 months. You can't rent your house here for those 6 months you're not here. Once you rent, you lose your homestead. You cannot rent your property, yes.
Does that include like Airbnb, like, you know, I sell a lot of next gen homes and they're living in the big side of the house and they rent the side apartment, right, for Airbnb or whatever.
The portion they
Can
rent,
do that?
the portion they rent will not be capped, and they will not get the homestead on it. They will only get on the footprint of where they're living.
How you guys have to control?
Very difficult. Not gonna lie, it's hard for us to know Airbnb.
To the house to see where they're renting, what area they're
Correct.
renting.
I'm sure that that's happening all over, and there, we'd like to, but there's not really a good way. And, you know, Airbnb is not giving us a list of, hey, we rent these properties in your county. So, there's probably some fraud going on out there with Airbnbs. But if we do find it, we do fix it, obviously. I mean, before I came in here, I was talking to one of my, staff that we have a person who's got homestead on property that they've Airbnb'd for many years. And I don't know if that comes up. My next slide, fraud. When I was elected in 2008, I created a fraud program because I certainly believe that, if you're doing the right thing and you're living in your property and you've got homestead, but your neighbor's doing it and they're renting it out, that's wrong. And they should not be getting benefit because that's just wrong. So we do have a fraud department. I have 2 people, I could probably have 10 people. Now, in saying that, I don't believe that most people are intentionally, frauding the system. I think they just don't know. Just like you didn't know you can't rent your property, homestead, or that you can Airbnb. Most people don't know that, you know, so, but unfortunately, if we find it, I can go back 10 years. And there's penalties and interest that go along with that. That's all statutory. That's not my control. So please make sure that you tell your clients, don't rent your property if you're filing for homestead, and if you're buying it to be a rental, you don't qualify for homestead. We may not find it right away. We may not find it for 10 years, but I will go back that full 10 years. I have. many times, because you're breaking the law. So,
I had a closing that the husband was in it. They were fighting, he did not wanna be on title, but they were married, so they had to be on title because she wanted to homestead. And he's like, no, I have homestead in New York, and I wanna have it here, and I'm like, I'm not supposed to be hearing this,
you can't do that, you don't have it in one place.
So upset, like, trying to get him off title. I'm like,
Yeah. Then he knew he was committing fraud. Most people don't. Most people don't have that, they really don't, they're not doing it on purpose, yes.
So let's say before marriage, the husband has one property, homestead, wife has another one. So does it mean that when they're married, but they didn't change any of the titles after marriage? Can they still keep the two homestead?
You can only get one, wherever you live. It is only where you live. The only way that a husband and wife can get homestead on two homes is to show that they are legally, financially independent of each other. And most husband and wives, even if they have separate accounts and they own the houses, there is some commingling of funds at some point. And so, usually you can't do that. It's very hard. I mean, you gotta 100%, and, you know, like I said, a lot of people have separate, but there is some commingling, and once that happens, you're not financially independent of each other. There's probably a handful throughout the state, but I've not known of any here, because we can prove that there's some commingling of funds, so. But we do go after fraud, we find it by return mail, most of it's return mail. Your neighbors will tell on you, they get really angry, or a husband might tell on a wife, they get really bad. Most of it's return mail. We do look at court documents, you know, those pendants, foreclosures, you know, we look at all avenues, but most of it's return mail because people, you know, change the address, they own the property, but they change the address, and then it starts us to investigate it. Here's the tax estimator. Again, we just revamped it. So if you look, I gotta stand underneath a little bit. The purchase price, you put what you're paying for the property, okay? And then are you gonna have homestead on it, yes or no? And then it will give you an estimate. Again, it's an estimate, but it's based on the current millage rate. So I don't know the 1.6 or 1.4, but I feel very confident that this is going to give you a very good indication of what the taxes are. It is going to be high when you put in the sale price, but I don't know about you, but I'd rather have too much money there when the taxes come due than not enough. Because the other thing that happens with us, and it's probably happening now, I haven't heard any horror stories the last few weeks, but you know, escrow analysis are being done, or we're done, and mine was done last month, and people's payment goes up. My son, as a matter of fact, bought a house in Polk County, and he calls me and Mom, and I'm like, I told you, your taxes are not gonna be the same. You need to start listening to your mother, especially with what I do for a living. But his payment went up, and it happens all the time because the taxes are paid. The taxes in closing are based on what the taxes are today. Now, some companies, I don't know if you guys do, but some will look at the tax estimator and prorate based on that. But most of them are gonna go, well, this is what the tax bill is right now, and this is what we're going to escrow your taxes are. They're not gonna stay that way, and so we have people crying, and we're getting cussed at. I mean, people are very upset, which I get it, you know? Your monthly payment goes up $200, $300, $400 a month, and you're stroking out. I get it, I absolutely do. But again, it's not just taxes, and, you know, we all know homeowners insurance is definitely on the rise. I'm scared to get mine in bill, but.
I can help you with that.
They're paid. But, taxes go up, so therefore their payments go up, and then we start getting calls, people in sheer panic because their payments have gone up. So I suggest as realtors and as property owners, you go if you buy a piece of property and put in what the sale price is. That way you can prepare your buyers, which is probably what I should have done with my son, instead of saying, you need to start putting money back now, and just told them exactly what. But this way they will have too much money saved and be prepared for that escrow analysis that says you have this much of a shortage. Because we all know they're gonna make up for the shortage and prepare for the next year, which is why those house payments go up significantly. And people are so upset, yes.
The estimator, Osceola County or state of Florida?
Most every property appraiser will have one on their site. This is on my site, on my website. So if you got a property in another county, go to that property appraiser. I think the only ones that wouldn't have it would be the smaller counties, but I think most everybody would have.
So like the millage rates and all that?
They're gonna be different in
They're gonna be
different, yeah, because I don't know what millage rates are in the other, counties, so I would go to that county property appraiser site. I'm pretty sure most of them have estimators. We try as an organization to encourage everyone, even the smaller counties, because they don't have the budgets that the bigger counties do, but try to encourage them to also put an estimator, because while they might not be growing as much as someone like us, they still have people that are coming and moving into and they're affected the same way, you know, with the taxes not being the same, so you should be able to go whatever county it is. And then to wind up, we are committed to our community, we're always out in the community. Another way that we take Homestead is I actually had someone, where was she at? Celebration on Saturday, right? Right. We go to the libraries, throughout, Homestead season to try to be closer to a community, BBL, Point Siena, Kissimmee, St. Cloud, and Celebration. To be out in the community for Homestead, but we also are out in the community, otherwise. We do volunteer days, I'm big on giving back to the community, so I allow my staff to go volunteer. We do Meals on Wheels 2 days a week, so staff actually, during the day, goes and does Meals on Wheels. We have outreach events, again, we were in Celebration on Saturday. I do these, now I have a bigger room to do them in, so hopefully we'll increase that. We do the donation drive, so I'm big about community. I was born and raised here, so this is my home, so I always want to give back. And then if you want another topic, we do all kinds. We just did the Homestead trim. If you want us to do one for trim time so that we can kind of do a deep dive into the trim notice, how to navigate the website, trends that are out there. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn. I also have a newsletter. If you're not on it now, I promise you we will not inundate you with a bunch of junk. It's good, helpful information. We also have YouTube, only a few YouTube videos. If you want to, you want me to go back, so sorry. No, don't be.
Thank you.
You're welcome. If you are part of another organization, your realtor group wants me to come to your group, reach out to Rachel. Rachel's going to set this up. She handles all of my communications and development. She gets us out in the community and helps to put these kind of things together. And we'll get me. I will always be the one to present unless there's just some kind of schedule conflict, but she tries to make sure that there's not one. So you will always get me to come and present. So before we wrap up, are there any other questions? Yes?
For the disabled veteran refund, how far back is that?
Only the year that they purchased. Yes?
For the widower exemption, do both people have to be on the deed?
No, because they just have to show that they were a widow,
They were married.
Yes?
So I have a client who bought a property and they already applied for the home section, but the lady told me that she qualified, but her husband not. What will happen?
They'll most likely still get it. Did someone from the staff contact her? How does she know that she did and he didn't?
I think she received a letter saying that her husband missing documents.
So if he'll just send in the documents that were missing, then they both should qualify.
Okay.
The reason that it's helpful for both to qualify is if she passes away and he did not apply for the homestead, he's not gonna be able to, it may hurt him keeping the, cap in homestead.
And in case that for any other reason he don't really qualify and she's still applying.
She'll get it, but it's just in her name, yes.
Okay.
But if it says there's documents, just get the documents we need to qualify.
Okay, and it's showing different amounts because he don't qualify or she qualifies?
No, it'll be the same.
The same, okay, thank you.
Someone else?
Yeah, 2 questions. So when husband and wife own the property, they both need to have social security, everything, US citizen or permanent resident, in order to be qualified for the homestead, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also, I want to find out how you determine the fair market value of the property.
How do we determine the value? We look at sales, so we do just what a fee appraiser does. So I use Celebrations to run up. We'll look at sales of same type of home, same size home in Celebration. We won't compare houses, we won't picture lakes with a house in Celebration, we'll do just what a fee appraiser does. We'll look at sales of similar homes, similar size, in the general area, and that's how we value it. Again, we're gonna take all of the sales, so if there's 20 sales, we're gonna look at them all, and, you know, throw out any that are super outliers, and come up with an average. But we're gonna do it just like a fee appraiser, just on a larger scale. Any other questions? Okay, Rachel is going to make us take a picture. If you do not mind being on social media, please join me up here. I appreciate it. And thank you so much for coming out.